the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We've got play props here on a Wednesday in the NBA with 11 games on the slate. So lots to choose from. A couple teams on a back-to-back as well. So definitely got to stay on top of those injury reports as things are going to be coming out all day. We've got another episode up for you, and we're bringing both of these to you each and every weekday. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Make sure you check out the best bets that we have in the other episode. That's got some sides and totals looks for you. In addition to these play props, we're bringing you. I had a rough day yesterday because as I was putting out my props on the show, literally as we were recording, is when news of the guys that I was taking went down. So I missed out. Nate had a fine day yesterday. Overall, 500 on the day between the props and the best bets. So we'll look to keep it going here and get a little bit above 500 again on these props. Nate, let's kick it off with your first look.
Let's take Steph, 30.5 points and assists. He had one game with Draymond back. Draymond played under 30 minutes on Monday. It was against the Magic, and Steph continued to slump a little bit, 2 for 12, but we've seen this every time. Every time maybe not one game he slumps, but if he slumps for 2 or 3, look out that next one. And he's got his boy back. Since 2023, he averages 27 a game with Draymond. So I'm taking the 30.5 points and assists to be clear here. He's implied minus 155. That's 61% to get the 5 dimes. So we're talking about 24.5 points on top of that, which I also think is very likely, but I think he could go off with the dimes here against a Jazz defense that's just going to be in disarray, depending who plays. They're at least going to be terrible in the backcourt because we're talking about 2 rookies in Collier and Keontae George trying to chase Steph around. And with Dre out there, they're going to have that mind meld. They're going to know how to get Steph open, and he's going to drain a bunch of threes. His last 6 with Draymond, averaging nearly 5 threes a game, only 38%. That was 3 shaky games, including that Orlando game, the last 3. But the previous 3, he was 20 for 33 from 3, including an 8 for 8 game, which I believe was also a bounce back spot, averaging damn near 30 on his own with Draymond. As I said, clear splits here. Who knows who else the Jazz might rule out here on the eve of the trade deadline? They are definitely shopping guys. That could certainly hurt if they don't have backline defense. But they're an awful perimeter defense in general. As you say, 4th worst above the break 3. Steph missed the last one they played against the Jazz because it was a back-to-back and the Jazz ruled everybody out. So, maybe he doesn't play here. It is a front end of a back-to-back. The Warriors do have a crazy schedule. 6 road games in 8 nights, I think, before the All-Star break, but as long as he's good to go here tonight, I think it'll just be a fun, romping around on the road here. He does average 8.5 assists his last 4 road games. And it has room for growth, as we say, 12 potential assists, only 5.8 in his last 8 outings. So I think both the dimes and the points are going up here. And if you like over in this game, I think a big reason is because Steph is back and he did not play in that first matchup against the Jazz a couple weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, that all adds up as well. The games where he has kind of gone under versus the Jazz in the past were blowouts, or games where he didn't see quite the same amount of minutes, often because of blowouts. And this ain't, as we say, last year's 3 years ago, this isn't the Warriors that you remember. At least not until they get KD again pretty soon. Who knows? Either way, this is going to be one where, this isn't going to be a blowout, in my opinion, is really what it comes down to. And that means that you will see enough Steph in this game to get him to the over. Not many people I would bet on this team outside of Steph, Draymond, and potentially Wiggins at this point, but everybody else is just untrustworthy with the minutes. It's mostly Kurt that makes them such, and it's Steph. So yeah, this is a matchup that I would be taking advantage of as well. Sticking in this game, let's go to the sort of other side of things here, where I believe that the Jazz have the advantage, which is a guy like Walker Kessler, over 11.5 reps specifically for him. Not trying to add the points, to be honest. John Collins has kind of come in and definitely impacted the points more than the rebounds for Walker Kessler. So I'm not necessarily looking to get any shots up for him. I don't think they're looking to get him as many shots as they were when he was in that dunker spot. But the Dubs do allow the 5th most rebounds per game to centers because their center is, I guess, Draymond Green, or perhaps you would say Trace Jackson, who's getting phased out, or maybe cement-footed Kevon Looney, who I have a ton of respect for, but none of those guys can battle with Walker Kessler at 7-2 or whatever. So love him on that. If you look at this, the way that this team has guarded centers of late as well, 11 of the last 15 centers they played have gone over their rebound prop versus them. 13 of those 15 have hit 10 plus. And if you look at centers in general on the season, they are averaging one more rebound per game than their regular season averages when they play Golden State. Everybody's got a little bit about a 10% bump in their normal rebounds per game. These centers are getting, like I said, that nice little the Golden State Warrior rebounding bump, if you will. He had 9 boards on 14 chances in 20 minutes last game when they lost by 41 minutes. I took him for a double-double in that one, hoping that we could see him stay on the floor. We couldn't. He couldn't even get the 10 boards because he couldn't. But, I mean, a rebound chance every 30 seconds, right? Like, I think I'll go ahead and take Walker Kessler to be able to get that. He should be in line for another 32 or so at this point, considering that like if we have Lowry, great. If we don't have him, you're just getting more minutes from Walker, and there's no more Drew Eubanks. So it's like the Rook flip Filipowski, if you want to put him out there. But he's lost his minutes to John Collins as well, because he does play a little bit more versatility. So I don't think he'll necessarily cut into Walker's minutes. We should be seeing him for at least 30. I think 32 to 33 is a good look here, and he'll be able to stay on the floor for all that.
Yeah, I mean, that 41-point blowout was the second game of the season. So, like, Warriors, back when vibes were good and Buddy Hield looked like he was going to be a Klay Thompson 1-for-1 replacement, and that has all evaporated. So, yeah, I know you talk about over in the best bets. I don't know if I'm sold on that. I mean, it's definitely possible. But I think the Dubs will be missing some shots here, even if Steph is able to get his number. I just don't, we don't trust the rest of this offense. So, plenty of rebounding chances for Mr. Kessler, given that. So CJ McCollum over 4.5 assists. Let's go with that again. It worked on Monday. Certainly, I mean, he only barely got over it, but he had 11 potential assists in the first game without DeJounte Murray. 6 missed opportunities on a game where Trey Murphy goes 8 for 12 from 3, and they don't miss much. That seems like bad luck. He had 13 more passes than Zion, who had the second most passes on the team. Jose Alvarado, only 22 minutes off the bench, not necessarily going to eat too much into the primary ball handling for CJ, who gets the same matchup now against the Denver team that allows the most assists per game overall. Why we like it. Their perimeter defense is a horror show, and they don't have Westbrook, who's going to be out there, at least like hustling. Christian Brown, probably the better defender to throw on Trey Murphy to try to cool him off a little bit. I like the fact that we're taking CJ, who's not like the man who gets all the attention. In fact, he's technically the third option, but he will just, that's where he thrives. Like, has for so many years alongside Dame, is like, you want to make me a secondary scorer. I got a bag that is quite deep and he can score. So, I mean, if you want to add, it's 25.5 points and assists, which is also a look on Monday. I mean, and he had 30. So that might be a little safer here, but I think the assists is something you identify as positive variance coming here. Talked about the first meeting against Denver this year. He had 9 dimes. DeJounte had 15. This is a team that just cannot guard on the back end. Like, even Yves Messi is scoring right over Joker because he's just like, whatever, you can't guard us. There's just no rim protection for the Nuggets. There's no above the break 3-point defense. They can't deal with guards who have a versatile, perimeter game like CJ. So let's take him again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would consider adding the points to all the points you made about above the break stuff. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, it's touches. Like, this man had 85 touches in this last game. Second to him was Trey Murphy with 68. But the time of possession for him is at about 5 seconds every time he has the ball in his hands. Zion would be, like you said, that guy that might eat into the assists. What a horrible dud of a game for Zion in this last one, too. I don't even know where he was or wasn't. But CJ, I would only expect the 11 potential assists to stay where they are. And the touches, it's just like, I just want to take stats or props for a guy who has the ball in his hands for the whole game. I mean, that's a lot of time of possession for him. So he's going to be involved like that. He's going to be feeding guys like Trey Murphy, who hopefully they can figure out how to slow him down. I mean, hopefully for Denver fans, I don't give a shit if they slow down Trey Murphy. But yeah, I think he'll have another good one, and the transition game will be there. But for CJ, I don't mind adding the points because of the above the break stuff. I think he'll have probably another 6, 7, 8 3-point attempts that should help him get there. So let me close it out here with Grady Dick. We're going to go over 13.5 points. RJ Barrett is questionable, so we do need to understand what that's at. And the only reason is because if RJ's out there, you'll probably get a little bit of a bump down in the Dick props here to maybe 12.5 or so on the points. But either way, if RJ's in, 13.5 is still okay against this Memphis team. We should be seeing a ton of possessions. Granted, Toronto has slowed down a bit and has been playing a lot better on defense. I'm still like, this Memphis team, even without Desmond Bane in this one, should be able to keep this thing close to an over. It's gotten bet down. It was at like 243.5. And if you don't have Desmond Bane, that is a big part of it. He gets out into transition so much that not having him doesn't help the over there. It does help an under. But either way, like, there's going to be a ton of possessions. You look at Grady Dick without RJ this season, he's gone over in 6 of 8. He's averaging about 16 points per game in those 8. So a little bit of disparity there. And then, like I said, the Memphis number 1 in pace, despite Toronto going down a little bit, they've still played with the 10th fastest pace on the season. And this thing should have a lot of possessions, in part because you see Memphis blitz the ball handler, and that does force the action and force teams to take shots earlier in the shot clock because the movement just is forced upon them as Memphis is trying to trap you and force steals and get the ball out of your hand. And I actually think they will be getting a good amount of steals, but Grady Dick is the outlet, right? He's the guy that's going to be available on the wing once guys are blitzing. Scotty Barnes and IQ is in this game, and Davion Mitchell. All three of those guys get more involved in the sort of playmaking than Grady Dick, which means those are the guys that are going to catch the better defenders and the focal point of the defense here for Memphis, who is 18th versus spot up shooters. And more importantly, they allow the 7th most points off of catch and shoot. And Dick is scoring 32% of his points off catch and shoot. And the other like 20% is off transition as well, as Toronto does get into transition a good amount. And this Memphis team is allowing the 3rd most points per game off transition, in part because they have 3 guys running on offense in transition every possession. Tough to get guys back behind the ball when the opponent then runs back down your throat. And that's where Grady Dick should be sort of open and available as well, is in that transition, as he's not going in for offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds, even, to be honest. At this point, he's really just getting out into transition for them. And he'll be that outlet pass that should allow for some easier buckets for him.
Yeah, a lot to like in terms of overs here. I mean, 155 for Memphis last time they faced them, and that was with Bane and Ja playing like 23 minutes, and then it was just over. I mean, I'm looking with Bane out. What do you think of Jalen Wells or Luke Kennard, or like how you split those guys up in terms of how Toronto allows corner threes? I mean, either Jalen is even money to hit two threes, and Kennard serious plus money to hit 3, where he ladders up to 4 or 5 a lot. So either of those will look for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually considering Wells or Kennard, but Kennard starting for Bane has been weird. Like, I love taking Kennard when he starts for Ja, and then he's got the ball in his hands just as much as Bane. But Ja just takes the ball and holds it so much that I just don't know who is going to sort of eat off of his passes when he gets into the lane and kicks and stuff like that. So I got a little bit scared of anything to do with shooters for them. But either of those guys would work, and I would think Wells actually a little bit more before Ja, because Luke, because he's staying out there for defense no matter what. Like, Jalen Wells has been a big perimeter defender for them.
Yeah, and I think Pirtle's not going to play for the Raptors. So, like, yeah, both Ja and Wells should have success just, like, going right to the rim here.
True.
And 10.5 points for Jalen Wells. Yeah, that's also a look here. But, yeah, I mean, no qualms with Grady Dick if RJ Barrett's out, that for him getting the points.
Yeah, keep that in mind. I think the minutes are going to stay high no matter what for him. But yeah, if there's no RJ, then he's looking at 32 to 34. So that's all the time we have for you, though. Definitely make sure you are staying on top of these injury reports today. Lots of fluctuating news that's going to be coming out. So definitely want to make sure you know who's playing before you take any of these props. But that is all the time we have. So make sure to subscribe to that page and check out the best bets with some sides and totals looks for you on this huge slate here on Wednesday. Until we see you next, happy betting.